Well, as that sign just indicated, we are visiting the area around the John Burroughs Nature Preserve here in the Hudson Valley of New York State. We're about maybe 5 or 6 miles southwest of Kingston and a little bit west of the Hudson River, but not much. My reason for being here is mostly to be looking for waterfalls. I'm always looking for waterfalls that are lesser known and new ones to me. So the Black Creek, that's a pretty large drainage area, and it tumbles down through these twisted layers of bedrock here. The bedrock's almost on edge in places. It's really deformed here, and could make for some interesting waterfalls. So the John Burroughs Nature Preserve is 200 acres sandwiched between 2 other chunks of land we're going to be exploring, including the one I'm on right now. So I made a video of that sign. To the left of that sign is the John Burroughs Nature Preserve. To the right of it, on this Middle Falls Trail, which has red markings, is owned by the Scenic Hudson organization, Land Trust. And the other side of John Burroughs Nature Preserve is the Black Creek State Forest, which also has waterfalls on the Black Creek. I don't have too much evidence that where these falls are or what they look like, because not too many people have recorded back here. I'm going by looking at topographic lines. The New York Waterfall Database doesn't have much detail on these falls. It's pretty much I'm going in blind to see what's back here, and I kind of like to do that sometimes. You know, the sense of discovery. But if the topographic lines are any indication, this Black Creek does a lot of tumbling down in elevation as it approaches the Hudson River. And many of the streams in this area do that. Matter of fact, most of them do. So to find flumes and falls on even the major rivers, the Sophus Creek, Rondout Creek, you know, that's what you find. So let's keep exploring this Middle Falls Trail. I'll record what I can find, and then we're going to turn around and go back and look for falls in the other direction. Alright, well, it looks like an old mill dam here. I'm standing on it. Notice this chunk of sandstone, maybe? Sandstone or a really dense shale here with ripple marks in it. Some of the older rocks in the Hudson Valley exposed in this area. The rocks get younger as we go west into the Catskills and Shawangunk Mountains. So these are, I believe, Ordovician in age. I'll have to check the maps. So this is Black Creek. Looks like it's got enough water to make the falls interesting. We'll see how they look when we get there. Some kind of an old mill dam here. Maybe not for a mill, maybe just to create a pond for other purposes. Beautiful morning. This is mid-November, and we got a partly cloudy day with highs in the 40s, so great hiking weather. Alrighty, well, just around the bend from that old mill dam, we come to a small falls here, maybe 8 or 10 feet, but pretty. And yes, there's plenty of water here to make a waterfall worth our seeing today. I can tell that already. So we'll just keep rambling down this gorge here. The trail is above me here, but there's plenty of fisherman trails that lead to some of these falls. So I'm just trying to follow those and listen to the sound of rushing water. But I mentioned that the bedrock around here is twisted and deformed. At this particular cataract here, it's actually on edge. So those are slabs of sandstone there on edge. So the effects of continental collisions millions and millions of years ago is what bent these rocks. And maybe a 10-minute walk in on this Middle Falls Trail, you do get to a sign. It says Middle Falls this way, and the trail keeps going this way. Well, if the topographic lines are any indication, there's probably more than one falls back here because of the how much the stream drops through here. You can really see the layering of this shale and sandstone below Middle Falls. The last video I took without commentary was at the top of the falls, and the marked trail to Middle Falls brings you to the top. And if you continue on the Red Blaze Trail, it will bring you to the bottom of the falls, but not exactly there. You got to come upstream just a little bit on fisherman trails to see the bottom of the falls. And like a lot of waterfalls, the effects of tree mortality, hemlock woolly adelgid especially, can make it a little hard to get to them because there's a lot of deadfall. But I was able to get through it. It wasn't impossible. I've seen worse. We've returned on the Red Blaze Trail back to where the branch in the trail is for the top of Middle Falls. I'm looking more at this bedrock here. These harder layers that are on edge are creating these falls. Usually harder rock always makes falls. Depends on what's underneath the rock sometimes, whether it makes a falls or makes a flume. So, John Burroughs Nature Sanctuary. We're going to be heading across that next to get to where I think there's more falls, and we'll record what's there as we go. It's supposed to be very scenic. It's a very well-known, John Burroughs was a very well-known author in the late 1800s, a contemporary of Walt Whitman and Henry David Thoreau, but he lived longer. Their lives did overlap though. So I'm using their map right now just to show. Parked at the pond entrance there. There's room for about 3 or 4 cars there. That wasn't a problem today on a weekday. Went north on the Red Blaze Trail to Middle Falls. That's part of the Scenic Hudson Land Trust lands. Now we're going to turn around and go back across the John Burroughs Nature Sanctuary all the way to the other end on this red trail, and it shows it going off their property. And where it goes off their property is right here on this map, which is showing the Black Creek State Forest, which doesn't have a lot of trails, but according to this map, there's a trail that continues south. It makes a little loop there where there's supposed to be more falls. I'll keep recording what I find today. I still have enough time to go back to that other falls. It isn't that far from here. And record what's there. And we'll record as much as we can about the John Burroughs Nature Sanctuary too, but I want to make sure I have time to get to the falls, so I may do some of that additional recording on my way back. All right, less than a 10-minute walk from the entrance to the John Burroughs Nature Preserve, at least the entrance that I used. We come to this pond. I just walked across the Mill Dam. So this is not natural, but it's beautiful. And this bedrock ledge juts right out into the middle of it. It's tumbled right into the water. Or more likely, it was tumbled before the pond was created and the water flooded the bottom of these boulder piles. Right there. Alrighty, well, to traverse the John Burroughs Nature Preserve, I have taken the Pond Lane and the Chodakee, I think it is, trail, which was blazed in red. I'm not sure the pronunciation of that, but that's what I followed. And the literature at the park says this trail will lead you to Black Creek and the waterfall. And we will be on the Black Creek State Forest shortly, but we'll see how much the trail continues. I don't know if it's marked beyond this, but if there's a sign here saying it leads to a waterfall, we're going to check it out. And that waterfall supposedly in the past powered a grist mill, so we might be able to find the remains of the mill itself. 1.3 so far from where you enter this park, probably 1.8 since where we turned around at Middle Falls. So time we get to this next waterfall, I'd say point to point between Middle Falls and this other waterfall might be a little over 2 miles, 2.25 miles, so maybe a 5-mile round trip by the time we loop it all together. All right, I recorded that sign saying you're entering the state forest here. It's not that far back to the falls. I can hear them from here. Maybe 10 minutes at the most. So our rocks are no longer vertical here. They're tipped at about a 45-degree angle. The folding in this area is pretty complex. It doesn't make huge anticlines and synclines that are miles across like it does in other parts of the folded Appalachians. But you can even see across this marsh, way back there, this folded layer actually continues underneath Black Creek. And yes, Black Creek is still water for several miles above these falls. Beautiful marsh here. Chodakee Lake. I think there's public access at the south end of it. Be something just to paddle up here to the falls. Maybe a mile or two. I'd have to scale it off on the map. Be a beautiful place in the spring. Good place to return to someday. So, you know, I drove across the Hudson Valley many times to go to the bigger mountains, and now I'm really trying to fill in the missing spaces that I haven't seen yet. And this is one of them. So let's go back and check out the falls. I can hear them from here. Well, folks, that sloping bedrock ledge created a natural dam above these falls, and it looks like they may have just augmented it slightly with stacking rocks. This mill complex is amazing. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this with this much stonework remaining and so many different features. This old mill is worth a trip. Take away the falls. Falls make it even more interesting. It's more of a cascade than a falls, but this is worth seeing back here by all means. So yes, that sloping ledge created a pond above the falls, and then there's more sloping ledges on the other side of this pond that create another flume. I think I could try to get over there if I have time. And then there's another pond below that. So Mother Nature, decides where the mill sites are going to be usually, and people try to take advantage of the natural features. At least in this part of the country, they don't have to build huge dams usually. Usually Mother Nature's creating the free-falling water for you to capture. So this is probably the main mill right here. I'm going to guess this is maybe 30 or 40 feet across this side, and maybe 40 or 50 feet this way. You can really see it if I get a little closer here, the length of this. Of course, the rocks around here are, sandstone, and it breaks into these nice even slabs. So mills tend to last longer if the rocks are flat and don't fall down. A lot of the mills in New England are built from rocks that aren't this easy to stack. So that might explain why there's so much left here to see. Perhaps a natural opening to let some light in. And all the mechanisms that were used for grinding May have been supported by this central wall here. You can see even more of it right here. What a beautiful location. And this little pond here, I don't know how deep it is. And then looking right up here, we've got these at least 3 square stacks of stone, you know, pillars that were made of loose stone, no mortar. That would tell you how old this is, before the days of mortar construction. They probably had that fit the water sluiceway. Could have been made from hollowed logs or made out of wood. Boards nailed together to carry the water to the water wheel, which probably would have been right about here, I'm thinking, or maybe in this slot here. I don't know. This arose my curiosity. I might try to do a little research on this mill and see if I can find out more. This is an amazing place. This is on public land. And yes, there's a waterfall behind it. So let's keep looking at these ruins. And let's go look at this falls. Alrighty, we'll take a look at these falls as we go up to the upper pond. This rock is about 30 degrees on edge right here, or 30 degrees from the horizontal. So a little different kind of waterfall than what we saw a couple hours ago. Beautiful. Well, you can picture the water going through a sluiceway between these stone pillars. There's one right here, and one right there, and another one behind that you can't see. Let's take one last look at the falls, and I'm going to start making my way back, and we'll do a little bit more recording around that lake at the Burroughs Preserve. There's one trail I didn't take that I think would be worth seeing, and then I'll be running out of time. All right, well, on the way back, I came out the Peninsula Trail on the Burroughs Preserve. It's just not even a quarter-mile long. There's a bedrock ledge that extends out into this lake that we saw on the way in. And it kind of divides the lake into two different bays. Yeah, we got beavers around here. That's pretty obvious right there. We'll look up the other side here, and then I'll do a quick review of the trail. It's a beautiful place. Little goofy lighting right there to really see it, but we'll try. So that's the other side of the lake, the one you can't see from the main trail. All right, I've got both those maps that I referenced earlier back out. I'm going to use the John Burroughs Nature Sanctuary map for most of this. It's a, it shows the names of the trails and the colors. So there's parking for probably 5 cars at the pond entrance. From there, it was maybe 3 or 4/10 of a mile to Middle Falls, and 3 or 4/10 back. Steep in places, but they switch backed it pretty well. It wasn't difficult. And then came back the pond lane, which is an old gravel road that serviced a house that's still standing there, but I don't think it's being used. It's gated off, but you can walk it. You can certainly cross-country ski it as level. And then get on this Chodakee Trail, which is marked in red, right to the property line here. And then jumped over into Black Creek State Forest. And it was maybe only 10-15 minutes from there. I'll use this map to continue that. On what looks like an old Jeep road. There was no markings, but you didn't need them. It was pretty obvious. And when you got down near the ruins, you could see the marsh on one side of the trail, and then you could hear the falls on the other. And this map shows it making a loop. And yes, there's little trails going all over that area around the ruins. But you won't get lost back there, because if you try to go anywhere but to the ruins and the falls, you're going to have to ford the creek or swim through a marsh or a pond. I'm guessing 4.5 to 5 miles total what I did, which is basically out one way and back to the Middle Falls, and then out to the other side of that parking lot, probably 1.75 miles over to the grist mill and the unnamed falls on Black Creek. So a lot to see in this area. There's a lot more to see in the John Burroughs Preserve that I won't get to today. And a lot of history here too.